We're talking about generative AI and Chatgpt, and we really want to understand in simple terms what it is. How do you use it? So Taj, why don't you take that one?
Sure. So, I mean, ChatGPT is nothing but a very smart, it's when we talk about AI, right? I've had the standing joke for 5 years. Some people laugh, some people don't, but it's artificially intelligent, right? It's a technology that mimics intelligence. It's trained on, millions of, pages or vocabularies or websites or, a lot of historic information that kind of you ask a question and then it gives you a response back, and it's built on the idea that in history normally, what when you ask this question, this is generally how people answered, or it tries to put the next word in the sequence together. It's if you think of like the chat gpt, kind of like when you're typing an email and now it's predictively telling you the next word, or if you're sending out a text message, it would say, hey, this would be the next word that you would type. It's kind of like the same thing, except that the rate of progression and the way it presents itself is so smart and sophisticated that it's kind of fooling us into thinking it's like super duper intelligent. But again, it's just great technology, and it's artificially intelligent.
Right. So it's a tool. So if we think of it as a tool, maybe not even a technology, then is using a tool cheating, right? That's our discussion. That's what we're trying to learn a little more about. So ChatGPT came on the scene maybe 2.5, 3 years ago, but it's been an evolution already because we did have Google searching and we had ways of getting information. Henry, would you consider generative AI cheating?
It depends on how we define it in our, let's say, classrooms. A good example: when I was in Rutgers, I wasn't allowed to use a calculator, so I had to do everything by hand. And during the test, we'd be able to do calculations. And for that reason, is because we are training our mind to think about the mechanics of mathematics and what is the logic that goes through it. Once you have that understanding built, then you can use the tools to automate that process and get there to the results faster. Now, in our case, we're seeing cases where people are using ChatGPT to compose, make our language more fluent. But the right way to think about it is if we set the standard in the classroom that we can leverage AI to augment our capabilities as opposed to giving it our data, then we are losing out. So we need to make sure that we understand that we take something from it, not take something away from us. Yeah.
Well said. Well said. So, Deborah, in your role of training teachers, and we now know it's a little more about what ChatGPT is, and we know a little more about what generative AI might be. Tell me, there's this thing called large learning language models. How would that fit into the dynamic of what we're talking about for K-12 education? Deborah, you're on mute.
Thank you, Ginger. And that's a very good question. Now that we understand the background of ChatGPT and what it does and why we need it, then how are we going to know that that information that it has is the kind of information, or how does that information get into the system? That is how you train these large models. So you have to decide. This is decided by humans. So the information you're getting is not automatically just coming out from the computers. These large models are being trained by humans, and that has a lot of other repercussions, because who's that human and what is their intent and what is the benefit that they want. So they feed all this information, and that's why we say that we want as much input from as many diverse people, because if the big model is trained by just a certain group of people, let's say it's only trained by people in America, we know our lifestyle, we know our foods, and then we want it to be exposed to the rest of the world, then we are missing out, because the rest of the world input was not part of this model. So that is how these models get all this information. And as much as possible, as you want to contribute to the information, anytime you see that if you're asked to contribute towards this information, or well, you're seen sometimes, would you like your information used? Evaluate and then give permission accordingly. The one thing that I want to mention as we use AI as a tool, as far as the answer that Henry was giving, is it cheating when you use ChatGPT? It is not really cheating because it's the same information you would find in Google. It's just that now it has come in a nice arranged package for you. So that is what training this big model is all about. That is how this information is coming to you. It's the computer is trained, these big models are trained, and then they go and grab all this information, and then you have exposure to it. It's right there for you. Now you can use it and use it in as best way as possible. The only bad thing is if you use that information and then you claim it to be your information. That is what we don't want. We want anytime you use any of that information to say, I wanted this information and I asked the model to give me some answers. And once it gave me answers, then I added this information. Then now we will believe you. But if you don't ever cite that you used other people's information, then that is when we can consider you to be cheating. And that's what we would do in graduate school. If you did not give us that information that you used it, we will call you out on it. And sometimes there are repercussions on it as graduate students.
Excellent. I'm reading in the chat, and Prakutri Sunil, you are out there and you're saying you're an incoming freshman from the Bay Area and you think generative AI can be considered cheating. So I think that's interesting. Can be, not always, sometimes, depends on the parameters. A lot of it's going to rely on the educators and how they help with the citations, how they help with the prompts. But y'all, that's leading to a new even evolution of what a career might look like. You know, as you build and you do things in your career, it's going to be the better questions that you ask. So there's this beautiful connection to education. And education, I heard both Henry and Taj say it, problem solving. The better questions we ask, the better problem solvers we're going to be. So that's the beauty of what happens in K-12 is students are learning to be structured problem solvers and ask the right questions. Now, guys, before we go any further, it looks like our friend, Mr. Moore, is on the line. Yes, smile.
Yes. Sorry about
exactly.
that. Something was going down, so I'm final in. So happy to be here.
Sure. So just walk us through your journey to data science, and then we'll move on with another question.
Yeah, so I think I probably missed the first question, but I've been with in the industry, IT industry, for almost 20 years now, and I've been with DG for close to 3+ years. And my journey into data science is, I mean, I would say I'm still a rookie in the data science area, I would say, because I spent a lot of time in building OLTP applications throughout my career, which is the core for, or the raw material for data science, right? So, but now I'm in the stage where we want to kind of build some governance around data, right? So the data engineering aspect of what we do in the OLTP, that's what my journey has been, and of course.
So when we consider it a tool, and we do use tools to help us with our learning. Y'all, am I still there?
We are not seeing you, but we can hear you.
You can still hear me?
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
when we use the tools, and we are definitely diving deeper and deeper into technology, and it's being infused. What I love about where we are right now is if you think of food and the richness and the textures of all the different foods, when we started to see fusion, where we were taking flavors from maybe Asian food and flavors from Mexican food and you fused them together, that's when you were getting this rich dynamic experience. And I think that's what we're seeing happening here in the space of what data is doing. So, Taj, in your journey at Nike, how are you seeing things fused together with AI?
Yeah, I'm going to try to bridge the gap between generative AI. So, and your traditional AI, which is what I kind of grew up learning and went to school. And back then it was called machine learning. Everybody called it that. It sounded really cool. And then 5 years ago, everybody started just calling it AI. And then of course, ChatGPT is like true AI apparently. So we have a whole generative AI kind of division or subset of, under the same leader. We started a whole new team. And then I'm working on governance. So AI governance is important, which means what are we going to do? Why are we going to do it? How can people submit ideas and use cases? And then how do we kind of create value out of that for us? So there's a lot of that. And then in terms of our traditional work that we might do, now the question is where, if possible, can we incorporate generative AI in the solution? So it kind of looks kind of cooler and it's more human-like and it's more interactive. So for example, if I was telling you something, could I tell it in a nicer way, which is what generative AI would kind of help us do, right? That's the minimum bar that we have to clear to include Gen AI. But of course, it can do a lot of other things, right? If you have a question, it can go in the back and write all these queries and then come back and display all these results, right? So there's a lot there. But in terms of a business use, we are clearly looking at the largest or the biggest bang for our buck, and then trying to see what can we get behind, because we cannot do everything. So we're gonna have to pick and choose. But we certainly want our population to kind of, ask us and say, hey, these are all my ideas. This is what I want to do. Here's a submittal. Here's a portal you can submit your ideas to, and then we will see what we can work on and what we can fund over the course of the year.
Very cool. So, if you gave an assignment in the workplace, just like you gave an assignment in school, and your team was leaning into an AI tool, what would you, as their leader, want to know? How would they cite it for you, Taj?
So it's a little bit different in the business world than it is in education, right? So education, we're always taught that, be very specific. Hard to say that I got this from ChatGPT. I've learned a lot from when I was doing my master's, right? Without YouTube, I would have never finished my master's. So a lot of videos on math and everything else, and sometimes the same videos 5 times. But I never actually said that I learned from YouTube, right? A little bit harder. I don't think it's, you can just say that this came from ChatGPT, although it would be nice because you have to avoid hallucinations. So especially if you say that, hey, this was rewritten or repurposed or, some kind of reference to a ChatGPT, for example, then that would let us know that, hey, some of this could be real and some of this could not be real, right? Like it makes up cases that did not ever exist, but it said, oh, through the legal system there was a lawsuit and something happened, and it's not even real. But I don't think it's that easy. I think the educators have to figure out how to educate the students themselves first, and then their students, to say, hey, if you use this tool, then maybe this is how we would want you to reference it. That's what all of us got taught. How do we all know how to reference and cite, citations, etc.? We were all taught how to do it, right? Which avoids the cheating aspect. So if you're going to use the chat GPTs, which should be incorporated into education based on what I'm seeing and thinking, then the educators have to teach us, how do I cite it better? I don't know the answer to that. Obviously the educators would know that better than I would. Back to you, Ginger. Hey, we can see you.
I'm back. Listen, sometimes those students out there, a refresh is all you need to do to try and connect, right? And reconnect. I think our conversation has been really interesting. We've had great engagement here in the chat. What I really want to change the conversation to is going to be this concept of automation. Henry, you brought it up. And so as things automate with the K-12 environment, you know, a lot of their decisions are enterprise level decisions. So a teacher may want to use a tool, but then it's not an enterprise tool for their system. How do you think we're going to be able to automate and bring some of those newer tools into the students so that they remain fresh, right, and very relevant?
So the teachers have a high order, a lot of responsibility. So they multitask and they develop lesson plans, and they have to worry about the children in the classrooms and their styles and the personalities. So, what the enterprise platform could do is reduce that workload to the teachers so they can worry less on the, let's say, items that require attention to details and worry on the high level and creative side of their teaching. So they get the benefit of helping each student in the classroom. As for students, they will have a complete and lesson plan, so they'll be able to write and learn concepts faster and quicker. And with ChatGPT, if the teacher or resources are not there, they can use that or leverage as a tutor. Uh, we have models. We have ChatGPT. We have Claude. We have U.to. As long as we teach the children that we're developing, helping you learn, it should be an augmentation tool as opposed to something that does it for you. Yeah, there's other camps that believe that chat AI can replace people, but for the future, we need to develop these building blocks and starter kits so they can leverage that technology and take the football and run with it. So I'm not in that camp. I believe that it will help more teachers reduce the workload and help have a standardized process for them.
Absolutely. Listen, Henry, you triggered something in the chat. And Esteban Lopez, you're out there. I don't know where you're from, but if you could just tell us where you're from, because what you're saying that you want to evolve the assessment methods to focus less on memorization and more on understanding, critical thinking. We're right there with you. In fact, I demoed a product here for graduate business students. It was called Breakout Learning. They were using AI in a new and different way that I haven't seen yet. You would still read your business case. You would still then have questions, but the students went on a platform and they were in a small group of 5, just like we would do Google Hangout. And it was moderating and it was watching and listening and learning what was happening within that environment. There was a scoring rubric. They could give that feedback to the teacher to say, hey, look, this student really didn't read the assignment. You need to do a little more intervention here. Hey, this student got to higher order thinking on Bloom's taxonomy, schedule, maybe all the way to synthesis. So that was a really cool innovation of AI. We're also seeing virtual reality, right, where AI is playing a big impact there, where students can go and immerse themselves in a new experience so that we can get to these higher order thinking skills and understanding. One of the things that I think our folks out there are very interested in is, what are the risks with AI? And then what are the opportunities? Sachin, could you tell us, in your opinion, what you see as the risks and maybe some of the opportunities?
Yeah, sure. I think at of course at college and my career, as throughout my career, I've seen that we need to be careful about what we share on the internet, right? And that's, I think, we have been taught all the time, like, don't send any sensitive information, and then be careful about what you also use, right? Because if you go to ChatGPT today and ask for something, it's going to give you a bunch of information, but now it's a responsibility to make sure that how legit the information is before we start using it, right? I think that's what Deborah was saying earlier as well. There's a lot of information available in the internet, so I think it's a responsibility to make sure we review the contents, even for the educators or for students, right? So whatever information you see, you need to make sure you review that and the legitimacy of the content before you really share with your counterparts or within your organization. And especially in Dollar General, we are very careful about information exchange or information IT security, right? Because the information is our asset, or that's our investment, right? So we just need to make sure we don't expose it to any vulnerabilities of the information. And on top of it, we also kind of utilizing some of the Copilot that is available in the market to kind of create coding templates. But again, those are just used as a reference guides, not necessarily the code ready to go into the production and things like that, right? So again, long story short, we just need to make sure what we are seeing on the ChatGPT or the GenAI and what we share as well has to be very, very careful, right? There are a couple of things, at least we at Dollar General are being very careful about what we share, what we utilize, and we have governance around those.
Absolutely. Listen, I do think something that's important and very relevant for us to talk about is many of these developments and these improvements have actually opened up education to areas and environments that maybe didn't have as much access to education. Also, within our students with learning differences, it has text to speech, speech to text, all of that has made a huge difference. I remember the first text to speech tool was text to speech was Kurzweil Reader 3000, and then speech to text was, remember that, Dragon. So Dragon Dictate. We've come a long way in terms of using technology and tools to help us reach our students, individualize what we want our students to learn, because it's their journey. And so teachers, as much as we are educators and teachers, we're also helping facilitate how a student is going to engage. As you heard my bell go off, as we start to wrap down, everybody knows you're going to have one statistic coming from me, because data and numbers are something that I love. So I looked online. I went to the World Economic Forum. This is from 2020. They were trying to predict what the jobs of the future might be. So part of K-12 education is getting people prepared for that launch. What is your career going to look like? Are you going to a 4-year college? Are you going to a 2-year college? So what is it going to look like? So according to the World Economic Forum at their annual meeting in 2020, and the next 10 years, we will have 1.2 billion employees worldwide affected by the adoption of automation technologies with AI. Let that number sink in, guys. That's why we're having this conversation. This is equal to 50% of the world economy, and when it will disrupt at least 14.6 trillion in wages. It is important to note. So that's scary. We hear it all the time. Are we afraid of it? No, I'm here to tell you, lean into it. Lean into it, because while automation will change the jobs, it's not expected to eliminate the jobs. They're going to be new and different jobs. So as long as we stay focused on developing our students' ability to make decisions, ability to ask good questions, we're going to be in the right place at the right time to help everyone rise to a new level. So as we wrap this up, I really want you to think about what gift you would like to give to the next generation of data scientists, what gift you would like to give to the next generation of communicators, right? Because our K-12 educators, our students, are helping us learn along with them. So Taj, what gift would you like to give to them?
The horse is out of the barn. Let's use the smarts, and our teachers are amazing. Let's use all of your knowledge to kind of design programs that can help enhance, kind of create the right framework, right? So that for me is why I'm here today, is to make sure that the teachers feel empowered to leverage what's out there because the kids are going to use it anyway. They use stuff we don't even approve. So let's just help them use it in a more meaningful way, and let's make it more educational so that everybody can benefit. All of us can. That's the next generation.
Next generation, for sure, that they all can benefit. Henry, what gift would you give to the next generation?
Yeah, just when you come from a place of good and want to give back, make sure that you train the next person next to you who's coming up, share your knowledge. But most importantly, when you work in technology, when you work on any improvements that will help humanity, always keep the human inside the element, because that's how it started. What we are doing is essentially feeding a system to automate and process our work, but we must not forget that how we got there, and that is important. Thank you.
Absolutely. Deborah, I'm coming over to you. What gift would you give to the next generation of data scientists?
What I will tell them is that AI is not going to take your job. People who understand how the AI works and who are continuing to advance themselves are the ones that are going to take your job. Because remember, AI, like I told you about the machines and how they develop, we are feeding them. They need humans. In my world, I also live a lot in the world of computer programming. And people are saying, oh, you don't need to learn programming anymore. Yes, you still do, because computers still need the human touch in them. Even though they can produce some code, it's not every code. We already know that there's all that kind of hallucination, that they can give you answers that don't really appear or are not truly there. So as the next generation of AI people, you have to keep yourself abreast with what is happening and keep learning. And I will tell the educators, if you're giving your student an assignment where then they can cheat, they can find every answer online, then that is not a good assignment. You have already failed. Making the assignment very personal so that it's coming from within the student is what is going to help those students use the tool to learn, but also bring themselves into the answer. So that's the little bit I want to live with the next generation of AI and the educators.
All right. So, Sakin, that's fantastic. Sakin, what gift would you give to the educators, the
Well,
K-12?
I think they already have a great gift in terms of ChatGPT that they can use to educate themselves. But again, like Deborah said, right? So let's not rely completely on that. So let's bring in a critical thinking aspect as well to the table. So that way you're not completely relying on what information you're getting ready-made, but it also makes you think beyond what is available to you, right? So I think my only two suggestions is don't completely rely on what you see on the internet, but challenge your abilities, bring in your critical thinking, buy books, rely on those material as well, along with what you get on ChatGPT. So that's my advice to the young generation. Thank you.
Excellent. So, in summary, we have from our esteemed panelists here, we're going to give the gift of giving back, remembering in the human element, designing activities that are going to be challenging and drive curiosity. So with that, it's from the K-12 Data Science Conference here. All of us are wishing you and all your students much success. We hope to be seeing you in some of our college classes, as well as hope to be hiring some of you. Listen, if you would like to get in touch with any of the panelists, you have their names. They are available to you out there on LinkedIn. Some of us are putting our emails in the chat. So thank you so much. And I would say it's a wrap from the Data Science Connect K-12 Conference, 4th annual edition.
All right.
Thank you.
Ginger, if you're
Thanks,
still
everyone.
here and we are not...